Before I get this optic mount review underway, I want to take a quick second to thank all the men and women who have been fighting the wildland fires here in Oregon. It's been really bad this year, and for the last week and a half, the air has been at unhealthy to hazardous levels here where I do my filming. So I haven't been able to come out much, but the air is nice and clear. We have a nice, beautiful blue sky, and that is all because of those brave men and women who are putting themselves at risk to fight those wildland fires. I really appreciate what you guys are doing. I can't even, touch the tip of the iceberg of my own personal experience with wildland firefighting. So, we are absolutely indebted to you. I don't think you guys get enough thanks for the sacrifice and effort and work you guys have put in this summer. So big thanks again to those of you who are doing that. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get this mount review underway. Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking about this optic mount here from ADM, or American Defense Manufacturing. Now this is actually the second optic mount that I've ever used from them. My first one is one that I have on a Primary Arms Advanced Microdot that I've had for probably three and a half years, maybe 4 at this point. Absolutely love it. It's been rock solid for me. Excellent return to zero. But when I got this 1:6 ACSS scope from Primary Arms for 300 blackout and 7.62 by 39, I needed a mount to put it in, and so I reached out to ADM, and they helped me out with one of these mounts. So during this video, I'm going to be trying to tell you the pros and cons about this optic mount and kind of my overall thoughts about it. But the big test for me is going to be a return to zero test, which those of you with astute eyes maybe will tell I have already finished that test. So I think you'll like what you see there, but I have to find the quiet time when I can because the range behind me right now is closed down. So I gotta get the talking parts out while I can. As far as the specifics of this optic mount, I'll go ahead and put it over here on the side. But I first learned about this series of mounts while I was at SHOT Show this last January, and I was really impressed by some of the features that they were talking about. The biggest one is that if you want to change out the size for the rings here, that's something you can do while keeping the same base. Now that's something that may exist elsewhere, but as far as I know of the mounts that I'm familiar with, it's pretty unique to this company. And for those of you who maybe have a couple different optics that you're going to be using, especially product reviewers like myself here on YouTube, if you're going to be getting a bunch of different optics in to test and review, instead of having to buy a different mount for every single optic that comes in, this one, say, is a 30 millimeter tube. Let's say I get a 1-inch tube. Instead of having to buy a totally different mount, especially for like a T&E one that I'm going to be sending back anyway, I can just get a new set of rings that'll attach to this mount, and then I'm ready to go, which is pretty awesome. I think that's a really great feature. Again, it's not going to make a huge difference for a lot of people, considering you're probably not switching out optics constantly, but for those of us who are, that's a really great feature. You can tell maybe from some of these pictures here that I'm going to be rolling in that it is skeletonized out here on the side, which is going to help with some weight savings, which is good because the spots where the screws go through for mounting on top and bottom of the scope, it's pretty beefy. So being able to get that weight savings where they can is really great. Now, as far as the weight, it is fairly light, again, for the size and for, I think, the rigidity of it. It's not the lightest one I've ever used, but again, for what it is, I think it's exceptionally light. And you may have also already noticed that this does come in multiple colors, and by multiple I mean 2. At least, again, as far as I'm aware, as of when I ordered these, you could get them in black or flat dark earth, which is what you see here. So for those of you who have FDE guns or already painted guns, instead of having to paint a whole nother component, you can get it from the factory with a FDE coating, which is really nice. And it's been holding up really well for me. I don't baby my firearms, so this thing has been knocked around and rubbed up against a bunch of other stuff, and I really don't see a whole lot of marring on it, which is pretty cool. Nothing's flaking off or anything like that, so that's always a plus. Now, I've actually been using this setup with the Primary Arms 1:6 scope with this ADM mount for quite a while now, probably close to 6 months, and I've been a huge fan of it. You guys, if you've seen pretty much any of the 300 blackout videos I've been doing with this upper here, which just for reference, I'll go ahead and get this out of the way real quick. It's a Spikes Tactical upper. I have a Midwest Industries rail, one of their Gen 3 M-LOK rails, which I love, with a Faxon Firearms 10.5-inch barrel. I got a Strike Industries King Comp on the front, a Streamlight ProTac Rail 1 light, which I love, some M-Bus Pro backup iron sights, and a Raptor charging handle, and then some other Strike Industries dust cover and forward assist. Really great setup. It's been working excellent for me, and it was kind of a match made in heaven when I was able to put this optic and mount combination on here as well. Let me go ahead and just get this part out of the way, since I know that's what most people are going to be curious about. It's what I would want to know if I'm getting an optic, and that's how well this thing returns to zero. So let's go ahead and get to that right now. So for the return to zero test, obviously I have the primary arms 1 to 6x ACSS scope at full 6 power. I have a target set up at 50 yards with another downrange camera, so we can kind of see where the impacts are happening as they're happening. I'm just going to shoot about 10 rounds, take the optic off, reinstall it, and shoot another 10 rounds, and we'll see what kind of point of impact shift there is, if there is any. So got this thing nice and zeroed, so hopefully we should be good to go, at least for this first 10 rounds. Okay, doesn't look too shabby. So we'll go ahead, undo the quick disconnect levers. When it comes to having it return to zero, obviously one of the most important aspects is making sure you get it back to the same spot. That's why it's nice having the Spikes tactical upper with the T markings, or if you know how to just eyeball it, you can do that too. T markings is a little bit more reliable though. So make sure I get this back to the same spot. Also, it's good to press forward as you're reattaching the quick disconnect levers. So we'll do that and tighten the levers back down. So hopefully we should be back on zero. If anything, this first round from these next 10 shots might be off as that thing settles back into place, but honestly, we'll find out right now. All right, so there's the second 10 rounds. Let's go ahead, pull that target down and see what we got. All right, so I had to wait until the range behind me died down. It's almost hunting season, so everyone's zeroing in their hunting rifles, and it's just been a constant noise battle this whole time. But anyway, they just shut down to go change targets. I'm going to try to talk and get through this as fast as I can. These center shots here are just for me re-zeroing this optic to this rifle after putting it on that 7.62 upper from PWS. So this group right here is the one that we're worried about. Again, 20 rounds, 10 rounds before taking the optic off, 10 rounds after taking the optic off. It's worth noting, obviously the barrel that I'm shooting is a Faxon Firearms 10.5-inch barrel. This thing has been performing excellent for me. It's hard to find a load that it won't shoot well. And then just for reference, the trigger I'm using is a Geisley G2S trigger. So I have some things working in my favor for this. You know, the results speak for themselves. So I'll have to look at the footage, honestly, to tell you if there was any real point of impact shift. Now, again, this is only 50 yards. Any distance past that, you know, once you get up to 150, 200 yards, you're probably going to notice maybe a slight point of impact shift. However, for me, I thought it would be unfair for me to test the ammo at those ranges, just because the level of precision that I can get with a 6-power optic, I think would not do any justice to it. But as you can see here, maybe with the exception of about 5 rounds, so with about 15 rounds, we got it into about 3/4 of an inch. Now when I get home, I'll measure it with my calipers and I'll put down at the bottom of the screen what the actual group size is here. But edge to edge, going center to center, we're probably looking at 1 inch, again, 50 yards. But again, with the tight, maybe 15 shot group here in the center, we're looking right around 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. So as far as I'm concerned, as Nero's makes no difference, this thing will return back to zero. Again, assuming that you get it back in the exact same slots that you had it in before, you should be good to go. Now, obviously, if I was going to be trusting my life to this rifle, I would want to confirm zero if I ever had to take the optic off. But if I absolutely had to in a pinch, I can't imagine a scenario where that would happen, but if I absolutely had to in a pinch, I would feel comfortable within 200 yards being more or less point of aim, point of impact, at least for the shifts from before taking the optic off and after putting it back on. So not too shabby there. All right, so as I wrap up, I want to run over some more of the features on this specific mount. As you'll see over here on this side, the levers themselves are a little bit oversized, and that is because this is technically their tactical version of these quick disconnect levers. As you can see, you got that little bar right there. You push in, and then you can swing out that lever, and then once you do it on both of them, you can take the optic off. Really simple. I kind of like having that extra little lip there to really help pry these open, especially if you get these pretty tight. It can be difficult to get them apart, and then again, even though they're big, if something snags on there, it's not going to open it up unless the little lever here gets pushed down. So that's nice. You don't have to worry. At least I can say I've never had it accidentally come open from rubbing against gear or a sling or anything like that. So that's a really nice thing. And then as you can see on this side, where those little screws are, or where the nuts are, it's pretty much going to be mechanically impossible for these things to loosen over time, just because they are locked into the little slot there. You can't twist those nuts unless you you release the lever and push it through, and then you can adjust for tension. So that's a really nice thing. I have had other optics from some very reputable manufacturers, specifically LaRue, where over time, the way the nut is on the mount that I have, over time, over the course of years, it has slowly loosened up to where it's not providing as much tension anymore, and has allowed that scope to wiggle around a little bit. They might have changed that in newer versions. Again, that mount is years and years old. This one, that is not going to be an issue whatsoever. So that's something I really like. Now, the only downside to these is going to be the cost. They're not cheap. Now, at the beginning of the video, I said that ADM helped me out with this mount. I should probably clarify that. They did give me a very slight discount on it. Basically, I got it for what the regular sale price would be as opposed to what their MSRP is. So the price I paid is what you're going to pay, again, if you can find it on sale. Which again, I was more than appreciative of that. So, you know, thank you to them for being willing to do that much. Because again, this has been a really great mount, but again, it is not the cheapest one on the market. That said, I think you're getting what you're paying for. It's a very sturdy mount. It returns to zero very well. And like I said, having the features like being able to just swap out the rings for a different diameter tube is a really great feature that, again, I'm not familiar with anyone else doing. So seeing that from ADM is really, really cool. The only other maybe downside is the weight. Like I said, there are some lighter mounts out there, but as far as quick disconnect mounts like this one, it's going to be right in where you should expect it to be weighing. So it's not really heavier or lighter than any of the other similar mounts out there. It's right what you would expect. Really, cost is going to be that only downside, but again, for what you're getting and for comparable things on the market, it's still a very reasonable price. And again, I think you're getting what you're paying for. So, you know, really to sum up my thoughts, I think this is a really great option for anyone looking for a quick disconnect optic mount. If you're running magnification on a rifle, or really any sort of optic on a rifle, I'm a huge fan of having a quick disconnect mount because, you know, let's say, you know, the thing people always go to is, oh, well, if the dot goes down on like a, you know, 1 power red dot, if my dot goes down, I'll just flip up my irons and it co-witnesses, no problem. Well, what if your glass cracks, or if you get mud on it, or if you get rain on it? You really want to be able to take that optic mount off if you have that opportunity, and to even be able to go back to your backup irons like I have the MBus Pros on this. So a really great option. This definitely isn't going anywhere. This optic and scope combination is pretty much going to stay together for the foreseeable future. Again, I'm a really big fan. And like I said, this is not the only mount I have from ADM. I also have one of their red dot mounts, which is fitted for like the T1, T2, H1 style micro dots, which again I have fitted on my primary arms micro dot. And that thing, like I said, has been rock solid. You guys have seen that many times in videos. I don't always mention it, but it's, you know, going to be on that AR riser for that absolute co-witness, which again you guys have seen in a ton of videos. Speaking of seeing a ton of videos, if you haven't seen all those other videos and you want to see more videos like this, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I would highly encourage that, obviously. And then if you do that, you'll see when I do the optic review for the Primary Arms ACSS scope here. I was going to try to do that today, but with the competing I've been doing with the noise going on over there, I'm just going to wait until one of the members only days so that I don't have to compete as much. So you will definitely see this scope coming up this week is when I'm going to be filming it. So, you know, give it a week or two before the video actually pops up. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead and throw those in the comment section down below. If you have experience with ADM optic mounts, please share your experience. I like getting as many different opinions as I can for anyone sifting through the comments looking for advice. If you have other mounts that you really like, you guys know I'm a fan of some other mounts as well, but go ahead and throw your recommendations down below also. But, you know, with all that said, as always, I hope you're able to get something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching.